lots to cover tonight.
The Dan York State of Mind program is brought to you in part by Lookout Rhode Island and Taco Comfort Solutions.
The Target 12 team is here. We're going to talk about the hospital merger controversy, the ongoing acrimony on who's going to run the lottery and Twin Rivers' technical side. And there's a little bit of a progressive bubble that is, I don't know if it's bursting or just being filled right now. And we'll talk about that. Great to have you, and thanks for tuning in. Of course, the president is dominating the news. Gee, what a surprise. Headline here, now she's got to figure this thing out. She was scheduled to do so about a half an hour after we taped this show, and prior to you seeing it, here's what the network had at our tape time.
President Trump arrived at the UN for a speech to world leaders, but a July phone call with Ukraine's president overshadowed his address.
When you see the call, when you see the readout of the call, which I assume you'll see at some point, you'll understand. That call was perfect. It couldn't have been nicer.
CBS News has learned President Trump ordered the State Department and Pentagon to withhold hundreds of millions of dollars in military aid to Ukraine, days ahead of the phone call with the Ukrainian president, in which he is said to have pressured the leader to investigate former Vice President Joe Biden and his son Hunter.
There was pressure put on with respect to Joe Biden. What Joe Biden did for his son, that's something they should be looking at.
The president insists he was not linking military aid to the investigation of his political rival. The controversy surrounding this phone call may be a tipping point in the impeachment process. Democratic sources tell CBS News it's no longer a question of if they will impeach the president, but when.
I think it's ridiculous. It's a witch hunt. I'm leading in the polls. They have no idea how they stop me. The only way they can try is through impeachment.
7 Democratic freshmen in the House from swing districts signed an op-ed saying if the president used taxpayer dollars as leverage for his own gain, then that would be a threat to all we have sworn to protect.
If they want to do it, go hard or go home. Stop talking about it. Go to Amazon, buy a spine, and do it.
House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, who has so far resisted calls for impeachment, will meet with her Democratic colleagues this afternoon.
You know, Senator Kennedy is right. Buy a spine and do it. It'll be really interesting to see if they present the case to him, what he thinks about it at the end, because, you know, when you're selling the nation's sovereign security in order to be able to get your opponent, it's probably not a good thing to do. Holy mackerel. Really? Well, listen, he's correct. The Democrats have never had, was that politically incorrect, what I just did there? I guess it was. The Democrats have never had the temerity to actually, you know what, or get off the pot. I mean, his point is well made. I told you that last night. What I think they ought to do right here, and, you know, Joe Biden was also scheduled to make his statement as well. So you've probably seen that before you saw the 7:30 and the midnight thing. But here's the situation. Biden has got to be calling for impeachment himself, because impeachment is the only thing that's going to bail him out of this mess, because he's going down the toilet with the president. You know, did he do anything nefarious? No. Did Hunter probably break the law? No. But what was he doing making money in Ukraine? In the middle of Ukraine? I mean, does anybody have a perspective at all? Right? So the president smells this. The president doesn't know the Constitution. The president has never seen a law. He breaks them a lot, but he's never seen one. And the president is so, the word was used today, bold, ignorant, that he'll just plow through hoping that his constituency also doesn't know the Constitution, doesn't know the law, and doesn't know that this is really a jam for the United States of America. I think the Democrats ought to go to an impeachment inquiry exclusively on this matter and leave the whole Mueller report behind. That would create a sense of urgency on this particular matter, which for anybody who's paying any attention to history and to this knows it's impeachable. All right. What the Senate does with this, you know what? They don't want it. They don't want it. Believe me, they don't want it. The Democrats need to deliver it. All right. All due respect to you Southerners. I used to talk like that, by the way, when I went to the University of Dayton. Didn't make me any dumber. All right. I'm trying to bail myself out of this.
Dayton? They talk like that in Dayton?
Well, yeah, they do. Show Ted. Show Ted and Eli. Yeah. So So in Cincinnati, they have very little accent, even though it's south of Dayton.
Okay.
But all the people from Dayton come from Kentucky. And so when you're a Jersey guy that talks like this, and you go to Dayton, it kind of evens everything out. Most people can't figure out where I'm from because I have no dialect.
Yeah.
All because I talk like this. I caught it real early in college.
I think you should do a show like that today, 3 to 6.
Oh yeah, believe me, they'll find a way to ring you up for that one. Anyway, here's the headline of the thing we were going to talk about. There's no formality on this show, obviously. This is a really important story. Ted's done some great work, as he always does on this. Eli, are you reporting on this as well? You guys working on this one together?
This has mostly been Ted so far.
Okay, so hang in there.
I might chime in.
I know you got some Target 12
He's a
stuff
trusted
going on.
counselor at all things.
Listen, long story short, there have been we've had many conversations about this. There have been multiple stabs at merging Care New England and Lifespan. Lifespan has Rhode Island Hospital. Lifespan has Miriam. Lifespan has all the labs. Lifespan is the larger organization, right? Hasbro Children's. Care New England has the former Memorial in Pawtucket, which is now defunct. It has Butler, it has Women and Infants, it has Kent Hospital, and its subsidiaries. It feels like hand in glove that the major merger would occur. Now, there are some people who think it's too big for Rhode Island, but that would be something that would be vetted out in the vetting process when the Attorney General and the Health Department finally get a hold on a real merger deal by the parties. Anyway, it's such a long story, but let me just set the table before I get Ted's input on this. So. The last merger attempt broke up, and then Care New England started courting, or was courted by the Brigham in Boston, partners. And they were en route to a deal when the governor took one more stab after Lifespan did an entire marketing campaign butchering the concept of Care New England and Brigham. They all got together. There was a 6-week romance rekindled trying to get this deal together, and it fell through. Care New England pulled away.
Well done. Yes,
okay.
Absolutely. The only thing I'd say is I think the governor partly acted under growing pressure among, you had Senator Whitehouse, Neil Steinberg from the foundation. You had this growing concern among elites about, what if we give the hospitals, the Care New England hospitals, to partners?
Agreed. Do you have an editorial position on whether Care New England and Brigham would have been a bad deal? I don't think so.
No, I mean, I guess first and foremost, it's not my role, and second of all, I think, from all the experts I had talked to during it and everything, I think as a lot of people pointed out, if Care New England needed a larger partner and they weren't going to do some kind of Rhode Island deal, Partners is undoubtedly one of the great medical organizations in the world, right? They'd be tied in with Mass General and the Brigham and all of that. And so certainly, that would seem like that hopefully you'd get some uplift from being a part of an organization that big, but it would almost certainly have ended the ability to create a Rhode Island-based medical system, which is what this is all about.
No doubt. All right. So anyway, they tried one more time, and I think you're absolutely correct. The governor was under pressure. Also, I think she felt the pressure of the marketing campaign that Lifespan was putting on.
Probably.
Don't you agree?
Probably.
They couldn't make the deal. All right. And so we get this headline last week. Wayne Miller reports out that the editorial board, meaning Ed Acorn at the Providence Journal, received a letter that Governor Raimondo had sent to the board chairman this summer that more or less was responding to the board's chairman request for the governor to signal that partners could come back into the conversation. That Brigham, now that they were out, looks like Lifespan is all done with the conversation with them, let's bring them back in. And she said, no, I'm not going to help you with that because you put who was going to run this show ahead of the merger, meaning the board did.
The Care New England board,
the Care New England board did. What was your take on that?
Well, first and foremost, that was quite a leak, and I give credit to Ed Acorn at the Providence Journal. He received it. I would have gladly taken that letter from a leaker myself. To have the governor herself pinning the blame for the failure of the merger, because remember, we really have
it's funny you say quite a leak. It is quite a leak.
As a reporter.
Well, the kid at the end of Animal House when he's reading Playboy, and the girl comes flying through the window. You could say, hey, that's quite a girl. Doesn't mean he did much to get her.
Well, fair enough. But I'm just
like that one. As a long-time reporter, you like that one?
Yeah, good reference.
I mean, you get a leak. I mean, because of your credibility, I'm sure you get a lot of stuff dumped on you. Sometimes it's valuable, sometimes it's not. But
my point just being to have the governor the governor herself saying, pinning the blame for the failure of the merger. Because remember, we didn't really know what led to the sudden collapse of the talks. They kept it very hush-hush during the 6 or so weeks of those discussions. Right. And all of a sudden, one morning, the governor had been away. I think it was when she took her trip to that economic conference in Idaho. Governor comes back, goes to Care New England for a meeting on Monday, and the next morning it's announced the talks are over. Care New England's out. And you can tell that Lifespan's unhappy, the governor's disappointed, Brown didn't seem thrilled. But we didn't really know what had been the forcing event, the thing. Now, I agree that the governor's letter is not dispositive, that that's the whole story, because there's non-disclosure agreements and stuff, and so we don't know everything. But this was the first vivid window we got into at least how some people are characterizing
Okay, so Eric, do me a favor. Give me the second Jim Finale piece of audio that we played prior to the show, because this responds to whether Care New England admits, in fact, that they wanted to run the show and whether that was part of the walkaway. If we could run that, please. So you guys were negotiating for 6 weeks. Was there no discussion of who's going to run the show?
There was discussion. Sure, there was discussion. I mean, there has to be discussion. Again, I won't go into details, but, I don't think the leadership issue couldn't have been resolved.
Okay, he says that on the radio last week. He also admitted there was more tape. I forgot what we had put on there. But he said, yeah, listen, for culture purposes, the Care New England board wanted to run the show. They didn't want to give up what they had rebuilt, what they think they had rebuilt. What is amazing to me is how they went 6 weeks deep in this negotiation without resolving that first. It seems to me there are a couple of boxes you got to check. One is, okay, we've got the lease with women and infants and Rhode Island Hospital. That's a transactional thing we've got to check off. The other thing is who's going to run the show. I mean, you can't flush out an agreement until you decide who's going to run the show. So they went 6 weeks. Tells me something went awry.
I agree, and I think...
and I don't know who's telling the truth, but I think the governor ought to get 15 yards on sportsmanlike conduct for putting that on them without discussing with the public what she knows.
She can't, though. There's a non-disclosure agreement that Care New England is demanding be enforced.
Not now. Ted's headline is up here. Now, I guess all parties have got to agree that they'll release on this.
You can't unilaterally end an NDA. You have to, and Care New England said they don't want the other three. Brown, the governor's office, and Lifespan told me yesterday they would waive the NDA, and Care New England won't.
I'm not sure that this information is in the NDA. I'm just not sure that it is. And I'm not sure that it pertains to the NDA. I just don't believe that all of these executives didn't have both formal and informal conversations about who was going to run this show.
I'm sure they did, but right now, all I know is as a reporter, when I want to get more information about that, I'm constantly told there's an NDA. We can't discuss that. There's an NDA. So, if they're just using that and they could, you don't know what you don't know, I guess. And so I think Rhode Islanders would be well served to have a better understanding what happened. I don't know if there should have been an NDA on all this in the first place because these are community assets.
And they would be community reviewed
Yes.
once the deal was done, right? The Journal took a heck of a shot at Jim Finale by saying, we hope a merger takes place and the Rhode Island should not be held hostage to the narrow interests of nonprofit hospital executives. He meant Finale. Finale didn't like that.
So it's hard not to read that last paragraph and think it's personal. The editorial board doesn't know me, and I think it's an unfair characterization, but I'll leave it there. I think that we always do the right. I've always done the right thing. I would never hold hostage this kind of discussion. So the board makes the decisions. You've hit the nail on the head. They may decide what they think is the right thing, and they make the decision for the organization. I don't. I represent the organization, and I will always do whatever's right.
He was definitely sore over that. What's the executive summary? Because we got other things.
I think we're in a weird position right now. I mean, it's not clear to me that Lifespan and Care New England can go on forever as independent organizations with the way healthcare trends are going more broadly. But I also don't know. There is really no clear path to me right now. And more talks as their relationship disintegrates. They're even harder for me to imagine partners coming back. So I am more. I might have had predictions at previous moments in this long-running story. Right now, I'm just not sure where it's going.
All right, we'll come back. IGT, Twin River, bang, 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 bang. Next. All right, there's been one Senate hearing. The governor was scheduled at 3:30 this afternoon to actually testify. Whether she does or her people do will be interesting on this IGT thing. Simply said, the governor wants to continue an economic development deal with IGT that required 1,100 jobs, along with the operational system contracts for the lottery and the majority of the VLTs at Twin River. You should know that Twin River is a commissioned salesperson, really, for the lottery machines up there. Before we get into it, $500,000 worth of lobby money. I have joked, put that headline up, I have joked that if you're a lobbyist or PR person and you have not been secured or put on the bench by either one of these two companies, Twin River or IGT, you probably should go into or something, right?
Yeah, maybe a different profession. There's a lot of money being spent right now on lobbyists between the two companies. And, you know, frankly, it's because there's a lot of money to be made with this contract. We're talking 20 years, $50 million a year. That's $1 billion over the 20 years. And the gatekeepers are the lawmakers. So IGT and Twin River know that hiring people to push their message is highly important. So they spent about $500,000 so far this year, estimated in actual spending. We estimate that'll probably grow up beyond $700 million at least, or $700,000 at least before the end of the year.
And that's not even all the money, because that's just the lobbyists. As you just said, Dan, there's PR people who aren't registered lobbyists because they're not lobbying. They're doing the public campaign stuff. I mean, the amount of money.
And there are people on the bench.
And there are people at Minardi. That's right.
No, it's like they've cleared
Warming
the
up.
deck.
Yeah.
I'm telling you. Frankly, if I want to retire, I'd start Dan York lottery consultation tomorrow. Get paid and go. It's just, it's crazy. It's crazy. It's a really interesting dynamic, though. I don't know who the good guys and the bad guys are in this situation because it's all about money. It's a mercenary game. And those lobbyists, by the way, it's like a shirt and remember when basketball you played shirts and skins, and then tomorrow you wear a shirt and the next day you wear a skin? It doesn't matter. It's all basketball for them. Because Chris Foley, the guy who runs Twin River, is a former IGT guy. He's got a lot of inside knowledge. Twin River, though, is not an operational company. And neither is Camelot, the company they just brought in to say, hey, Camelot will do what IGT can do. Explain that.
Yeah, so Camelot,
Camelot's a new development.
Camelot recently, just last week actually, joined with Twin River in offering a competing deal to
Canadian company.
London-based Camelot.
Owned by a Canadian pension fund.
And this is
That's
part
right.
of the problem
Canadian
with all of
pension
these,
fund,
all of these companies.
Yeah, they're all in
is
like
that-
50 countries, and we don't know what to write for the headquarters. Yeah,
exactly.
Because their headquarters are like this, a piece of paper.
Exactly.
No, because they're all paper companies in a lot of ways.
Yep. And they're oftentimes doing business with each other all across the state and the globe. I mean, in Europe and in the United States, Camelot is working with IGT.
Be clear on that. Hires IGT to put the machines in for the deal that they made with another entity, a state or a country, to put in the machines.
That's right. So Camelot is aligning itself with Twin River to try and get the contract in Rhode Island. If you look across the pond to London, Camelot runs the British lottery, and they contract with IGT for technology services.
It's fascinating. IGT says, wait a second. Twin River is just going to sub out the work. So Twin River says, oh yeah, watch this. They bring in Camelot, who subs out the work.
That's right. I actually reached out to Camelot today to ask them if they would need to bring in a gaming technology company as part of their deal because, well, we're still waiting on a response from them. But they did say earlier that that is typical of what they do in other
Well, I
states.
think they have
and-
one or two
and
answers they would give.
jurisdictions.
One would be yes. The other would be yes. Right? I mean, because they don't make them.
It is what they do elsewhere.
Yeah, I mean, it's, you know, I think that's part of the problem. I think we were talking about this in the newsroom the other day. You have different things that are all getting conflated in this, and I feel for people at home because this is a complex, this whole show has been complex in the hospitals and now the gambling stuff. But, you know, there's the basic question of, is the governor's proposed 20-year extender with IGT a good deal? Is it fair? Is the safeguards in place? Is it worth the money? But then, if it's not, or if we're not sure, then you have a whole different set of questions about, that doesn't necessarily mean Twin River and Camelot are automatically the ones to do. You have to look at, could they handle it? What would they charge? Should you be looking at other companies altogether?
I think the governor has made a lot of bad moves, and I think her behavior on the health care thing was not good. But I will tell you, I think she's right on this one, in the sense that, look, IGT is real. IGT's got headquarters, IGT has those jobs, They've got a long-term deal, and the idea that Twin Rivers say just follow the law and bid it. See, everybody wants fairness, and they don't do the homework on what fairness really means. There's no constitutional demand that this thing be bid, unless you put it out to bid. This was an economic development deal. You give me jobs, we'll give you the contract.
I think IGT would agree.
Yeah, well, but I think they got to do a lot of diligence. General Assembly's got to do a lot of diligence on the IGT deal to see if there's a haircut that it can go through.
Yeah.
But to suggest that the bid process is the first thing that ought to be demanded, I think is...
Yeah, I mean, I will say I've covered a bunch of these gambling contracts that go through the legislature rather than a bidding process, and this one, you know, at least partly to their credit, I guess, because Twin Rivers hitting it so hard, it's getting scrutinized, which, you know, usually is good in the long run, I think, for things to get the tires kicked hard. But, you know, there have been other times decisions on who gets what share of revenue have just popped up in the middle of the night from the legislature on these kind of things. So at least this deal is getting close scrutiny, and then hopefully lawmakers, you know, really do their homework and make the right decision.
I think this thing can still be resolved by Twin River and IGT going out for a drink and saying, all right, we'll cut you another 8%. Can you just shut up? Because that's how this started. Right? Twin River went to IGT and said, hey, listen, we want a piece of the action. All they want is a bigger cut. You know, well, they would like to control it because of the revenue down the line, but they might cut their losses if they're going to lose this decision. And IGT probably would find a way to cut through. But IGT is pretty clear. If this thing goes to bid, they only need 60 jobs to run the Rhode Island Lottery. And those jobs are very transferable to other locations.
And as much as you know, IGT does have a big operating facility in Providence, the old GTEC tower that's
for the
their
whole
tower
world
now.
that they operate by.
Yeah,
Right.
But they are controlled by an Italian conglomerate now.
Who doesn't have any allegiance.
Right. It's not the same as it was when Governor Kucheri did the first deal and GTEC was homegrown. And so I just think you have to always keep the calculus. What will the Italians who really control IGT, what is their interest and what do they want? And I think that's harder to know.
A new political bubble popping up. We got a minute for that next. Yes. All right, let's real quick. Oh, who's this guy? Matt Brown. He ran for governor, didn't raise any money, and got thumped in the Democratic primary versus Governor Raimondo. But the former Secretary of State here in Rhode Island is doing what, real quick?
So, you know, at the time the headline you saw there before, yeah, on Sunday he sent this invite to a party. We're going to have news, he and his wife, and so it got people wondering, oh, is he running for something again? Is he going to surprise everybody? Just today before we came in to tape that press release that was just up, it sounds like he's going to help to spearhead some kind of aggressive effort to elect progressives to all sorts of different offices up and down the ballot next year in 2020.
Makes the General Assembly kind of a tempest in a teapot, right? I mean, the old guard is under more heat.
Yeah, you know, it'll be interesting to see what he's doing. I also wonder if it's not a good way for him to sort of stay in the conversation for the next couple of years for whatever might come next.
To run again? Maybe he should raise some money this time. That might be it.
2022 is right around the corner. I'm already excited.
Gentlemen, thank you for your insight and your reporting.
Thanks, Dan.
Check WPRI.com and Target 12 for all their good work. Final word next. Tomorrow night we'll have some numbers analysis on what this gaming controversy might mean when it comes to the bottom line and the constituents' behavior and the pressure and the competitive issues coming from Everett with the new casino there, all tomorrow night. Make sure you tune in to the radio at 3 until 6 on WPRO. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you so much for tuning in. Appreciate it. Good night.